Yes, Ocho Siesta, and it sure feels like that today on this spring-like pre-spring day. We'll take spring-like weather anytime we can get it in the F-Town confines. And speaking of confines of F-Town, this is James Moore. Welcome to City Business. We are here with Michael Halley, 4th Ward council person, and we're giving you the latest from the city haps and also FMC in the house, Mr. Jason Strong, who bringing it on as he does every week, unless some of us are sick. I heard some bronchial over there. I hope it's not anything like I had. I was out for 10 days. That's as sick as I've been in 20 years. So I'm just going to give a recommendation. Don't get sick, folks. And speaking of not getting sick, let's get into what's happening at City Hall. Michael, how you doing today?
I'm good. That was not a sick cough. That was just a clear it out before I speak talk.
Excellent. Okay. How you doing? And otherwise good and ready to go?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Ready to go. It was a little lonely last time you were ill, so I did the solo version of City Business, and then I let Jason off the hook because it's just very boring to film someone talking to himself. So
I do it all the time, but that's
but no one wants to see it on film. You know?
Nobody wants to see it on film. But,
so yeah, glad to have you back. I'm glad you're better.
Thanks. Yeah,
fever finally broke, so that's good. All right, a review of our regular City Council meeting from March 9th. 2015, we heard from 3 different separate public appearances. The first was Jonas Magrum and Tom Christofiak.
Oh, yes. I saw something about that.
Yeah. So they brought a proposed resolution. They're hoping the city would be ready to say, yes, we'll get on board with the resolution to divest. Well, how should I word this? For the city to recommend that the state employee retirement fund divest from companies, fossil fuel companies.
And let me just ask that again. You said for the city employees to divest from state?
Well, the city can't divest anything. We don't have that control.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand.
So it would be a recommendation or, a request to the state. They call
retirement fund.
Yeah, state employees.
But in other words, the city employees are part of a state pool. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is for Fairfield to consider recommending an action that would divest from fossil fuel related industries. And
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So those funds would not be invested in those companies. So it was the first we heard of it. And this is just kind of an FYI. If you have something like this that you want to bring to the city government, city council, my recommendation is to start at the committee level.
I was going to say, just knowing how this works, yep. I wonder if it was recommended.
Because it was a little bit too much at our meeting mm-hmm. to consider and make a decision on without going through committee first. So now it's actually going back to committee. So to go through my committee, the environment committee, we're going to meet soon to hear about some solar energy opportunities for the city. Cool. So it works out nicely that, these gentlemen won't have to wait long. Sometimes, depending on the activity level of a committee, it might be a while. But we'll meet soon, and we'll hear from them in more detail. Now, if they can convince 2 of the 3 committee members that this is worth doing, then that would make a committee proposal to the council.
Which is a stronger case.
And a much stronger case.
We've talked about this mm-hmm. before, just as a matter of form or structure, when the inspiration comes to do something. This is a great idea. A lot of people, I'm sure, feel good about something like this. Mm-hmm. It's just understanding that there are committees, and while it's probably not necessary to do something like this, what was the result? I'm just being play-by-play announcer.
Sure.
The council says, you know what? There's a committee that considers these things. Let's go through that, see how they feel, and then so it's not a put off. It's more like you're hitting the right target.
Yeah, and in committee meetings, there's a smaller agenda. It's more specific, fewer items, and you can get into things in more detail. And
targeted, right?
Yes.
I mean, because obviously your committee, the committee that you're on, deals with this issue.
These kind of issues. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So we'll hear more on that later. We heard from Vintage Power Wagons. They've got their annual rally coming up
in June.
Let's see if this will open.
And I think they switched to an earlier date, didn't they? Or did they mention the date?
I'm having technical difficulties. They did, but I can't get it to come up here.
Okay, no worries.
Jason,
it's always in
he could
June.
flash it across the screen.
It's always in June. I just think they're moving it back a week. I think it's back a week, if I remember correctly. But
since it's still March, we can get that information.
Yeah, don't quote me. But well, how can you quote me? I didn't say anything.
And then we heard from a couple of filmmakers from university.
Cool.
Who wanted an alley closure. Actually, same alley, 2 different times, 2 different films.
Interesting.
And the council passed that.
May I ask which alley?
It's the alley on the north side of the square, the paved one with the pavers.
Such a beautiful alley.
It really is. So
we hope Fairfest, we're going to get into it. We had such great alley after parties last year. That's just a prime spot.
Oh, that is a good one. Yeah. So it'll be on a Saturday for setup so that it will remain open because there are some businesses in that alley. Mm-hmm. And then filming Sunday. And then the other one is filming Sunday, but into the night. And so I'd asked the question, do you plan on making much noise? And the response was, well, a guy is going to be dying from a vampire attack, but he dies quietly. So
so no explosions.
No explosions.
Okay.
I mean, there have been some films where they fired
no helicopters,
false rounds, and
yeah,
if you don't give everyone a heads up what's going on,
well,
it could scare people.
In the wonderful world of filmdom, you can actually have smoking guns that don't make noise and then add the sound later. But I'm just saying, or you know what, silencers, baby.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know why I'm doing the camera thing, which
you missed it. Yeah,
our radio audience can't really get the advantage of that. But that's why it's good to tune in if you're interested in seeing. I mean, go at your own risk, but it's seeing this. That's FMC, by the way, Fairfield Media Center. So we're with Michael Halley. This is City Business, and we're chugging along. What else?
Well, we had a whole slew of resolutions. We started with the public hearing.
Oh, I thought you meant like lose weight.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay.
We resolved to do other things. But we started with the budget for the 15-16 fiscal year. So the city's on a fiscal year that begins in July and ends in June. And so we're coming up on a few months out from the end of this year. So fiscal year 15-16, let's see, some highlights were that the levy rate's down. So we're I don't want to say billing or charging, but we're taxing people less for property.
But the levy rates, what does that mean?
That's the term for the amount of your valuation that we grab.
Gotcha.
So, so there'll be a little tax relief, but I think the mayor had an article in the Ledger that explained though ours is down, maybe some of the other taxing entities aren't. So we're not sure how much actual relief that will give people, but we lower it whenever we can. We had a little debt levy that needed to be paid off that was paid off last year, so that's why we're able to lower it. In coming years, it might bump up temporarily to pay off some short-term loan we took, but in general, we always try to keep it as low as possible. So it came down. The overall budget this fiscal year compared to last is a little bit smaller, and just as in an effort to strengthen our finances in one sense, in the ways that we were recommended by Piper Jaffray after the bond rating went down. Mm-hmm. We're asking our departments to be a little more. I mean, this has been ever since I've been on the council, but just really run as lean as they can. This isn't a time for spending. Now, just like in personal finances, there are times when you get a bonus or unexpected larger tax return or whatever, you get a little extra money, and maybe you take a portion of that and you spend something you've been wanting for a while. City is no different, but this is not the time for any of that. We're trying to get that general fund. That's where all the funds come into the general fund, and then they get paid out to the various departments. We want to have a balance in that account, which hasn't had a balance in some time. So that's the general idea. The Ways and Means Committee will be working on some fiscal policy. We have a new administrator. He's on board with that. And a lot of cities have that. It's just, some sort of, here's how we handle things. And like a basic, I call it the prime directive, is we don't do anything we don't have funding for, so that we don't get in this situation where we really want to do that. Oh, we'll find the funding later. No, we tie it to the funding. If we have it in hand, we go ahead. If not, we don't. And that just keeps us from having old debt. Mm-hmm. Which is...
It doesn't sound American to me, but it's...
You know what? I think it is American. I think it's old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Not, the modern times is borrow, float your debt.
That's right. My parents would not take a credit card even if they were given one.
Yeah, see, there you go.
But I do believe 1 in 3 Americans are actually in collection right now, so it's it's a mix. But budget-wise, you're talking about keeping it clean. And I know is it the state level where it's required by law? I guess some states have that where balanced budget is required by law.
Yeah, well, it balances. It's just that we want to build a surplus. Mm-hmm. So in this fiscal year's budget, next fiscal year's budget, we're building it up. So we're adding about $100,000 in surplus to our general fund. The recommendation from Piper Jaffray was $1 million. So that's, we're trying to get there, but you can't do it all in 1 year. All right. So then we approved said budget. Let's see. We had a few land acquisitions for the wastewater projects. These are 3 of them were actually not really acquisitions. They were, oh man, my mind just went blank. You know what? This is the daylight savings time curse. We had this last night at City Council where people were having trouble formulating their thoughts because some hour got stolen from our lives.
But, so the third word out of every sentence goes, but not acquisitions?
Yeah, they're
land grants?
Not grants, but we talked about this before. This is embarrassing. I'm really embarrassed right now because I know the word
don't
that I want. But I'll describe it and then it'll come to me.
Well, hold on. While you're don't be embarrassed.
I am.
This is community radio. We are embarrassed 24/7, like the mighty Mississippi. We roll on and on, going on 9 years too. Speaking of which, City Business you can catch after each City Council session, the Monday that the City Council meets, the following day, Tuesday, 12:30, live at lunchtime. Thursday night, 6:30 p.m., it is rebroadcast, this little exposition of juicy, intellectual, and event-based stuff.
Nice.
And also then Monday morning, 6:30 a.m. So 3 times, and then it goes up on FMC. You can check in if you want to see this in Technicolor and all that. I don't think there's actually a drone to get the distance shot, but that happens after each City Council session. I have been speaking with State Representatives Kurt Hansen and possibly the county as well to start doing alternative weeks that we're not doing with the City Council. But that said, did you remember acquisitions?
Was that all stalling so I could remember it?
Yes.
That's amazing. I really appreciate that. So we're not purchasing land. We're just basically setting it aside for our use. So it's still called a purchase agreement. And it's not cheap, but the word I wanted was easement. So remember, folks, the word of the day is easement. Word of the day.
Sounds like a Michael Jackson tune.
Yeah.
No, ease on down the road. I'm confused.
So, we want the easement allows the city to have access to the ground and they can't build on it. And that's,
gotcha.
Such.
I love that word, actually.
Yeah. So then in some cases when it's permanent, then the landowner wants to be paid for that because you're taking their land out of circulation or whatnot. They can't use it. So 2 pieces of land, 3 pieces total, all running south from Lamson Woods to the wastewater plant, and does go under U.S. Highway 34. So we can move forward with that portion. Now, this next one was a land acquisition, not an easement. There was a property west of the wastewater plant, and in order to expand, the city needed to purchase it. Sometimes these things go smoothly, and sometimes it is a long process. We've gone into so many closed sessions because you don't want, during a real estate transaction, to make it public what you're willing to pay or not pay. And so it went back and forth a lot. But finally, we came to an agreement to purchase the property. And the amount we paid was, though significant, was still under the budget amount for the project, for that portion of the project, for that acquisition of that land. So I would hope the land or the property owner is happy with the arrangement. If I were that person, I would be. So, now we could finally move forward, start engineering. That's what we'll do first, is just go out and mark things. But that's where there's going to be a new retention pond, because that's part of
so
overall.
That's really moving it all forward.
Yeah, it's a huge piece of the puzzle. There'll be hundreds of easements needed along the way as we branch out. But this first portion of expanding the plant and then widening and building new pipes to it from what right now is kind of a bottleneck around Lamson Woods. If you ever walk out there and it doesn't smell good, if it smells like sewer, that's because that's a site where there are overflows. So it really needs fixing. So this is part one. And we're moving
either that
forward.
or a lot of Febreze.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a commercial. I mean, Febreze as a metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. Like a Kleenex or a tissue.
Or Xerox.
Exactly.
Wow, we are on fire today,
We
folks.
really are.
I literally, we need an extinguisher in here.
All right. Another, this was interesting. It was just a public hearing, but to hear the state had to run a study on the step one of the sewer project, finding of no significant impact. FONSI is the acronym. So I did not make it up. It says it right
happy
there.
day.
All right. So we are really going off the deep end.
I can't do Fonzie, but I happy days.
Yep,
Okay.
there you go. Happy days.
Well, it's a beautiful day to be happy.
It is happy.
As we record
but
this.
it's good news too, because
Fantastic.
they study environmental impact, archaeological impact.
But Fonzie is the acronym.
FONSI is the acronym.
Wow, that sounds like my second memoir.
There it is. All right. We rezoned 106 North 3rd Street. This is a funny little portion of the Fairfield lumber property that for whatever reason had been...
But what part is it? I mean, I know that so intimately.
I think it's the northeast.
The corner.
For some reason, I think.
Well, at any rate, I mean, everybody knows there's the lot behind there.
Yeah.
So it was just some funny little...
It was still zoned residential. And
they're
like, well, we want to sell this business. And they actually got a call from the owner asking, can you go ahead and go from the second to final reading at the meeting so that we don't have to wait and postpone the sale. And when in instances like this where there is a reason to skip the regular process of 3 separate readings over the course of 3 meetings, we will do it. There was a good reason. There was zero controversy. It's one of those things that it should have been done this way a long time ago. It was kind of fixing an old error. So we passed that. And so Fairfield Lumber
the idea there, I'm sorry to interrupt. The idea there is that it's so it's all zoned properly, and it takes away that issue of selling that lot or whatever.
Well, technically, what they were using it for might not even been.
Oh, I
proper.
gotcha.
Someone skipped up that. Yeah, it was zoned improperly. So fixing that.
I always thought those guys were gangster.
Yeah, they kind of are.
Just kidding, really.
Well, they're selling the property. They're selling the business. So
I don't want to get nailed. Oh, really? What have they said? What the business is? It's not yet.
No.
Interesting. Well, there's some change on that row.
Yeah. Well, no, I assume someone would buy it as is, buy the actual business, not just the property. We'll see. All right, we had the utility rate increase first reading. This actually isn't. I don't believe for Fairfield residents. I think this was increasing I was about to go the small communities. This is water, not wastewater. So there are only a couple of steps in the water side. The wastewater is the one that has to bump up every year a little bit, just to pay for the upgrades. Which, by the way, just for the record, why are we paying so much now? People sometimes ask that question. They look at comparables. I have a guy next to me at work who has a property in Iowa City, and then he had his utility bill from Iowa City and his utility bill from Fairfield, and he was comparing. It was actually not that much different. And they had a stormwater fee that we don't. So something to think about for the future. But people have said, utility prices are so high. Why does it cost so much? The reason is it's called deferred maintenance. Anybody who's owned a car or a home knows that if you put off fixing something long enough, you pay many times to fix it once you finally do than you would have if you'd just been more proactive. Apparently, this wastewater issue had been talked about in the 70s by the Fairfield City Council, again in the 80s, and it just kept getting pushed off, as they say, kicking the can down the road. Finally, the state got involved and said, you need to do something or we're going to start fining you for these overflows. So we're actually in a more or less a contractual agreement with the state. Now they're dealing with the EPA, so everyone's got someone looking over their shoulder pressuring them, but we have to fix it. So it's just one of those things. It's unavoidable. You can't go back in time unless someone has figured out how. I'm not aware, but I don't know how to go back in time and fix it in the past. So we're dealing with it now.
Well, we've gone from Fonz to Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah. We're all over the place.
Pew, pew.
So first reading, if you have, this was water rates for communities who we service. Okay. So some of these little towns in the area that get the water from us. Mm-hmm. Nothing major, but we do need to stay ahead of. There are some infrastructure upgrades coming for the water department that brings you the clean water, as well as the wastewater that takes your dirty water, but fewer for the water department. There's no need for expansion of the plant or anything like that. It's basically conveyance. Some of the pipes, I remember a couple of summers ago, we had all that drought. It was really dry days. Well, that was causing the soil to settle down, and they were fixing pipes all over town. So there'll be more to fix in the future. Got to pay for it somehow. There you go. All right. The mayor was out of town, so we had no mayor report. It was John Rivalinsky filling in as mayor pro tem. No city attorney report. We heard from two committees, public safety, transportation. I just filled in for Tony Hammis, who wasn't there. He's the chair, and talked about that filmmaker's permit process. So we've been working with Donnie. I call him Donnie, I guess that's his name, Donald, but Donnie Rivalinsky, John's son, from the David Lynch filmmaking department on this process, and he's been very helpful.
He was a show host here for many years, DJ Revo, great guy.
Yeah.
And also works media communication department.
Yep. So he's been very helpful in putting this together. We started with the template, and then we've just been tweaking it. But former police chief Julie Harvey started the process, and so now the current police chief, city administrator, everyone's looking at it, and we're very close to a final permit process. And basically what that does, it just simplifies and smooths out the entire process of, I'm a filmmaker and I want to film in a city park, or close a street, or burn something, or make some noise, or I want cops in my shot, or any of that kind of thing. Instead of trying to go to each department individually, you check what you want specifically and when and where, and then city administrator takes that. Every 2 weeks, all the department heads meet at City Hall and would talk about it then. And anybody who's involved would sign off on it, and just
great, make
it so much easier.
Well, it makes it easier for people to do that, which is kind of a fun thing for Fairfield. I know the mayor himself has been in I remember that one of these productions.
That fight scene in Paradiso is very classic. Throws a good punch, fake punch. Yeah, you kind of needed the Batman and Robin. Pow,
yeah, pow,
bam,
thwonk. I'm not sure that was one, but
I think that is. I used to read comic books as a kid, and some of the alliteration or whatever, there would be like thwonk. Like, what is that exactly?
Just like what it sounds.
I guess it is.
By the way, just in case you know, this is city business. We are having too much fun, but it still counts. It's city business.
Yep.
City Hall, figuring out all the latest haps, what's going down there with Michael Halley, who is the 4th Ward council person. This is James Moore. You're listening to Solar Powered KRUU-FM, the voices of Fairfield, Iowa, and beyond. Michael also has a show Fridays at 8 p.m., A Reasonable Alternative, with the one and only Matt Molyneux. Mellow Molyneux, as some say.
And, I like that name.
Well, the guy's he's
so chill. Yeah,
he's a chill pill and very lively too. But at any rate, also we want to thank again Jason Strong for being in the house, coming down and doing the great work that he does there at Fairfield Media Center. And this week, 2 birthdays, by the way. We're past them, but Dick DeAngelis, speaking of FMC and All Things Italian and KRUU, Sleepy Time, and Melinda Arndt as well, who's actually out of town. But, some good birthdays.
Yep. Well, the next time we do this, it'll be the day before my big 40th.
Oh, my goodness.
So you can say something about that if you want.
Dang tootin'.
But I got 3 more things to cover.
Alrighty, we got just enough time.
Economic development. We met actually just prior to City Council. We talked about development of housing out east of Pilot Grove Savings. The city may need to extend Lincoln Avenue a bit because the developer's land is a little bit further east than where the road ends. And without a road, no one can get there. So, got to build a road.
Every road leads somewhere, even a dead end.
Yep. And then we talked about an update from the pool. It's on schedule still. This nice weather's coming up. They're going to get ready to start pouring again.
Nice.
But pool should be ready end of May.
Sweet.
And then we heard from Derek Wolfcool, Parks and Rec Superintendent, about a change order that the Pool and Gym Task Force is looking at in detail on Wednesday. Then we'll have a special council meeting, probably Friday, over lunch hour at City Hall to just go over that one change order. It's to add 4 additional side basketball hoops to the inside of the indoor gym.
Cool.
It will take a decent portion of the contingency funds, but as I mentioned last time, the whole project came in under budget. So there were funds available for these kind of add-ins. So this was one that we felt would add a lot of value to the facility. So more on that next time.
Fantastic. Hoop, 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 hoop. And that is all we got. No, we're done, folks. And that means you've made it through another city business right here with James Moore, Michael Halley, Jason Strong, and all the good folks at Community Radio, right? Oh, siesta ocha.